Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest monologue. Today, I'd like to say a few things about the UN and its various arms. A friend of mine, Yannick Ndonyo, a Tanzanian wildlife conservation scholar, recently asked a question, seeking for frank input on the question of how, what is the utility of UNESCO or World Heritage status as far as heritage conservation is concerned. And this got me thinking that if, as we look at UNESCO, it has become a tool of acquisition of natural heritage that belongs to certain nations around the world, especially in the global south. If you look at World Heritage sites, in the north and the west, they tend to be what I describe as dead sites, monuments, um, monuments to individuals, eras, nations, etc. They're not utilitarian or being used. Others are also historical in terms of like Machu Picchu in South America and monuments or built by past civilizations. But come to the present day, what are the recent World Heritage sites that have been declared more recently? Um, Look at things like the Great Barrier Reef. Look at Ngorongoro area in Tanzania. These are natural ecosystems that belong and once belonged to indigenous people who lived in those areas. Like the Great Barrier Reef, obviously it belonged to the First Nation people of Australia, but it was quickly annexed by the British Empire and Australia was created. Then suddenly from the British Empire, suddenly it's a World Heritage Site. So it suddenly belongs to the world. When was it gonna ever belong to the indigenous people of Australia? Likewise with Ngorongoro. We are told this is this great conservation area and now it belongs to all of us. When is it going to belong to the Maasai, who have been its custodians for thousands and thousands of years? So we have to think carefully about what utility UNESCO has with these declarations of World Heritage sites, because suddenly one uniform thing is that suddenly when an area, living area that is someone's home, is declared a World Heritage Site, they're instantly disempowered. Suddenly it's about the UN. And if you look at, sometimes it's quite deliberate. If you look at the case of Mount Kenya forest in Kenya, this valuable water catchment area, dry season grazing, medicinal plants, sacred sites for various Kikuyu sects, etc. And it's a cultural symbol of the Kikuyu people. So at some point, someone declared it a World Heritage Site. When did it stop belonging to the Kikuyu, Embu, Tharaka, Meru people and start belonging to the world? And when did it stop being a dry season grazing area for these thousands and thousands of pastoralists from the arid north and start belonging to the world? These are the questions we have to ask. And you see, people have started using it. If you doubt this, that it's become a tool of acquisition, look at the case of the conservancies that I've said so much about in the past. As they now approach the ends of their leases and the tenure of the landowners on those lands comes to an end, or it's less tenable because these lands were not bought, these were crown grants, you suddenly find World Heritage status from Mount Kenya Forest is expanded to include Lewa Conservancy. How is that? How is that a World Heritage Site? There's nothing special about Lewa. It's just a savanna. It's an area of savanna at the foothills of Mount Kenya. But you realize that once it becomes a World Heritage Site, suddenly the ownership or the status as a conservation area is secure, because now it can't be changed without reference to the UN and all their nonsense. And suddenly the owners or those who tout themselves as conservation conservation pioneers in that place are suddenly very secure because they cannot be disputed by anyone, even in Kenya government. And suddenly that piece of land is no longer belongs to anybody in Kenya, or no one in Kenya is entitled to make any decisions about it. And it's one of the things that's even being proposed around other pieces of land. The big lease of land of around 250,000 acres around Lake Magadi in southern Kenya. The lease is coming to an end pretty soon, I think this year. And one of the things that was proposed, rather than set a schedule for handing it back to the Maasai people, was first to create a conservancy. The Maasai people didn't say they wanted a conservancy there, and there were people who were thrown out from there in 1924. But another thing that's now I've heard spoken about is creation of a World Heritage Site. Again, it's just a tool not to give a resource back to the people to whom it rightfully belongs. Now, if you look at the UN as an organization, it's touted as something that was formed to avoid a world war happening again. But the truth of the matter is that the UN was formed to formalize and create structure for imperialism. It was formed to decide as a body that decides who is an empire, who can be an imperialist, and who can't. And the empires are those in that strange organ called the Security Council. So those are the empires that are official empires declared by the UN. And that's why when you find a case like imperialist cultures like Kenya, when our former ambassador Dr. Martin Kimani gave a long speech at the beginning of the Ukraine war, a long speech to the Security Council, defending and robustly declaring our pride as Kenyans in the colonial African borders, it delighted imperialists. And it's still touted today as one of the greatest speeches to the United Nations, because it expressly supported imperialism. When Kenya volunteers at the UN to go and help police in Haiti, we are serving the cause of imperialism, and you can see the praise that has come to us because of that. So what we must understand now is that the UN is something that we should tolerate for whatever reason, but we shouldn't look at it as a basis for what we pursue. The UNEP has the 30 by 30 proposal to have 30% of lands under protected areas by 2030. That is harmful to us. It does nothing for Africans because it's our land that's going to be taken away. When we look at the UN Permanent Forum on indigenous issues, it purports to stand for the rights of indigenous people, but it's the same UN that has another branch, UNEP, that wants to take the land away from indigenous people from protected areas. So the UN doesn't know what it's doing. Even with the wars and humanitarian crises around the world today, all we hear is these exceedingly poetic speeches from the Secretary General. But on the ground, the organization, the UN that purports to take care of the oppressed, is the same one that provides the auspices under which the oppressors are exercising their oppression on other people. So as I've always said, it's important for cultures, people, and even individuals to think for themselves, chart their own paths, because anything in the world today, anything that is touted as global, a global initiative, be it a global pandemic, be it a global crisis, climate crisis, seeking global solutions, everything that is touted as global, as in concern, is a basis for violence on some people. Because the diversity of landscapes, climates, people, ecosystems, cultures around the world does not allow for any single thing, be it a religion, be it a tradition, be it a language, be it a political position, be it laws, does not allow for anything to be done on a global basis without violence and oppression of some people. So, as far as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, completely useless. I wish it was completely useless. It's actually harmful. So, if for anybody around the world, if you ever get that thought of wanting to seek World Heritage Site status, think again. That is something that takes what you have in your hand and what you've kept for so long and places it in the hands of the most powerful, places it under the power of the officially declared empires. And there's no place for that in the world today. Think about that and regard all living ecosystems that are UNESCO World Heritage Sites as the scenes of theft that they actually are.